If you watch Stranger Things closely, you may have already felt that the series seems strangely familiar, not just because of the bikes, the monsters, or the 80s setting, but because of that feeling that all of this already existed somewhere in your memory. And that's no coincidence. Stranger Things is born directly from the tradition of 1980s horror, the kind of horror that blended fear, adventure, and coming-of-age stories. And within that universe, no name is more influential than Stephen King. The creators of the show have never hidden that. On the contrary, each season works as a modern reinterpretation of the ideas, themes, and obsessions that define the author's books. Here, the supernatural doesn't appear out of nowhere. It invades small towns, ordinary homes, and the lives of children who are still trying to figure out who they are. And that's exactly how Stephen King has always built his stories. That's why, in today's video, we're breaking down the most evident references between Stranger Things and the universe created by King. But before we continue, take a moment to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. That way you won't miss upcoming videos about movies, TV shows, and pop culture here on Top Z. Reference number 8, the opening typography. One of the clearest homages appears right in the opening sequence of the series. The typography used in the Stranger Things title wasn't chosen by accident. It directly references the covers of Stephen King novels published in the 1980s and 1990s. It's a simple detail, but one that sets the tone of the show before the first episode even begins. Reference number 7, telekinesis and the character. 11. Another essential element is the presence of telekinesis. In Stranger Things, it manifests through 11, a character shaped by experiments, trauma, and powers she struggles to control. This kind of character construction directly echoes classic Stephen King figures like Carrie and Charlie from Firestarter. In all of these cases, power isn't a gift, it's a burden. Reference number 6, Stand By Me and the Friend's Journey. The first season of the series also works as a major homage to Stephen King's coming-of-age stories. Will's disappearance sends a group of friends on a journey that goes far beyond simple adventure. Just like in Stand By Me, what matters isn't only the destination, but the path, the conversations, the fears, and the changes that happen along the way. Reference number 5, core theme, growing up in childhood. Growing up, by the way, is one of the central themes in both Stranger Things and Stephen King's work. Childhood is never portrayed as something innocent. It's a time of discovery, pain, exclusion, and confrontation. The group of friends in the series follows a logic very similar to the famous Losers Club from Men. Marginalized kids united precisely because they don't fit in. Reference number 4, bullying as real horror. This similarity becomes even clearer when the threat is no longer just supernatural. Bullying is a recurring element in Stranger Things, just as it is in Stephen King's books. Psychological and physical violence from other kids is treated as something just as terrifying as any creature from another world. Reference number 3. In childhood, fear. Speaking of, Pennywise's influence appears more in ideas than in form. The series never directly copies the villain. Instead, it plays with childhood fear, past trauma, and stories told within the narrative itself. Small dialogues and situations act as nods to viewers familiar with King's work. Reference number 2. Stephen King books in the series. Stephen King's books also appear literally inside the series. They show up as background props, reinforcing the historical and cultural context of the time. It's not just a visual homage, but a reminder that these stories already existed in the collective imagination long before Stranger Things. Reference number 1, the Upside Down. Another key element is the Upside Down. This alternate dimension, created by experiments gone wrong, follows a logic that's very common in King stories. The idea that there's a fragile line separating our world from something far worse. Once that line is broken, the consequences are irreversible. And before the conclusion, it's worth highlighting an extra reference that many people overlook, but that says a lot about Stephen King's influence on Stranger Things. Extra reference: Billy Hargrove and Human Evil in Stephen King. Speaking of bullies, Stranger Things deepens this influence in the second season with the introduction of Billy Hargrove. Billy represents one of the most recurring archetypes in Stephen King's work: senseless human evil, violent, unpredictable, and just as frightening as any supernatural creature. In King's stories, horror often doesn't come from monsters, but from ordinary people capable of extreme cruelty. Billy fits perfectly into this profile, acting as a constant and very real threat within the narrative. Visually, the character also carries clear references. His jacket, jeans, and aggressive posture directly echo Randall Flagg, one of Stephen King's greatest villains, especially in The Stand. The blonde mullet hairstyle further reinforces this connection, recalling Jamie Sheridan's portrayal of Flagg in the television adaptation. More than just aesthetics, this choice highlights a central idea. In Stranger Things, horror isn't limited to the supernatural. It also emerges from human behavior, abuse of power, and boundaries that should never be crossed. In the end, Stranger Things works as a bridge between generations. For those who grew up reading Stephen King, the series feels like a modern reinterpretation of familiar themes. For those who discovered this kind of storytelling through Netflix, it becomes a gateway to a much larger universe. That's why Stranger Things wouldn't be the same without Stephen King. His ideas shape the characters, the conflicts, and the overall tone of the story, sometimes clearly, other times almost invisibly. If you enjoyed this deep dive, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned. In the next videos, we'll continue exploring these connections between movies, TV shows, and pop culture. See you in the next one.